Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Casual Criminalist. This one, the Tilly conspiracy, the Hannibal Lecter of mental manipulation. Oh my god. It's going to be a rough episode already, I can tell. Thank you, Arnaldo, for writing it. The format of this show, if you're new here, is that Arnaldo has written this for me. I've never read it before. You and I, dear audience, are going to explore it together, so let us jump in. The Secret of the Hedgehog. In August 2006, French author Muriel Barbery published a breakout novel, The Elegance of the Hedgehog. It's a weird name, isn't it? That's one of those books where I'm like, this book's going to be complicated. There's going to be 0 spies in this book. Therefore, I'm not interested. It's set in a well-to-do apartment building in central Paris. The main character is Renée, a middle-aged woman and concierge of the tenement. Our American friends would call her the Super. Oh yeah, like the supervisor of the building. Yeah, we don't call them that. Renée performs a menial and poorly paid job, but she harbors a secret, perceived by the 12-year-old Paloma and Japanese businessman Mr. Ozu. Paloma and Ozu, in fact, pick up several clues from Renée's mannerisms and vocabulary, coming to the conclusion that she is much more well-educated and intelligent than she lets out to be. Let's now move to early 2009 in real-life Oxford, where a man named Baron Bobby manages the cheese stall of the city's popular covered market. Bobby has recently hired a new worker, Christine, a middle-aged Frenchwoman. She displays a quiet and humble demeanor, but almost immediately attracts his attention. You see, Bobby is also French. A French baron, to be precise. Baron, that is. I have no idea if that's the French pronunciation of baron, but I imagine it would be.
So imagine this, you're out there looking for the perfect holiday gift, or maybe just a little something unique for yourself. Well, let's talk about today's sponsor, Holzken, for a second. They are this family-run company from Austria, specifically in Vienna, and they've been crafting beautiful natural pieces like this since 2016. And their name actually means wood core, and each piece, whether it's made of rich walnut like this one is, or whether it's made from onyx, or even a peacock feather, yes, that's really a thing. It's unique. It's like wearing a little piece of nature on your wrist. And here's the fun part. Since they only use natural materials, no two pieces are exactly alike. So you're not just buying a watch, you're buying something as unique as a fingerprint. And with FSC certified wood, they're serious about sustainability. Holzken's not just handing out timepieces, they're helping preserve the forests they source them from. And for Black Friday, for a limited time, Holzken is having their biggest sale of the year, where you can get an exclusive 30% off by clicking my link in the description or the pinned comment. It's a perfect opportunity to find that gift for someone special, or just treat yourself, why not? Plus, free express worldwide shipping, no waiting around. Orders usually sharp in just 2 to 5 business days, right from Vienna. Big thank you to Holzken for sponsoring today's episode, and now back to it.
His real name is Robert Puget de Saint-Victor. God, I love French. Like, I mean, I can't speak a word of French, but the accent, like, Robert! Similar to the novel's characters, Baron Bobby Puget picks up on Christine's accent and figures of speech, realizing that she might be upper class, even of aristocratic stock. And much like the novel's Renée, Christine might conceal a secret. Upon his relentless badgering, Christine caves in and spills the beans, causing Bobby's jaw to plummet to the floor. As Christine spews forth her story, a massive convoluted conspiracy swirls around amongst her words, one that would leave Dan Brown giggling in a puddle of his own fluids. There's an image I'm never going to get out of my mind. Treasure hunts, Freemasons, the Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, and a mysterious cabal of laser-wielding homosexuals. What? What's going on? Well, to uncover this atrocious plot that has ruined Christine's life, we must travel back to the previous decade and meet her extended family, the Vedrines. I have absolutely no idea what is going on, Arnaldo. I'm hoping some explanations are going to come because I am confused. And also, why are there gay people with lasers? The Castle and the Avalanche. The Vedrines were, and are, a large family of rich, successful, and highly intelligent professionals of aristocratic descent whose lives unfolded across Paris, Bordeaux, and their ancestral home, a village in southern France called Montflachin. It surprised me. It's like, oh yeah, they're intelligent and like an old aristocratic family. Wow, so they somehow didn't manage to inbreed that weird normal dumbness that comes with like royals. Here they had their own castle, Chateau Marte. Now, dear Simon and friends, it'd be time to introduce the names of our characters. So I would suggest you grab a pen and paper and draw up a family tree, as it will become handy later. Yeah, Ronaldo, I could do that, but I'm also not going to. No one I'm gonna. You ever listen to one of those books, like one of those self-help books, where they're like, yeah, okay, what I want you to do now is pause this audiobook and have a think about this. And then the narrator or the author who was writing it is like, no, seriously, I want you to do this like right now. Right now. Okay, good. Now that you've done this, no one's ever pausing that, are they? No one's ever pausing that because you're listening to an audiobook because you're on a run or you're in the car. It's not like you're suddenly going to pull over and be like, okay, now it's time to sketch out the thoughts of my dreams. Doesn't work like that, does it? The matriarch of the family was Guillemette, which is difficult to pronounce. Not for me that was my first crack at it on Alto, and it might be horribly wrong, but at least I tried. So how about we anglicize the names to Wilhelmina? That is harder! Wilhelmina? That's not anglicizing, it sounds Germanized or something. Wilhelmina was born in 1912, and at the time of her story had 3 surviving children, all aged between 50 and 60 years old. Oh my god, she is old as shit, dude. The firstborn son was Philippe, an executive for Shell Oil, married to Brigitte. Next, we have second-born Ghislaine, owner of a school for secretarial staff in Paris, and married to journalist Jean Marchand. Ghislaine and Jean had 2 children, Wilhelmina Jr. and Francois. Oh my god, these people like Jean, Francois, Philippe, they are just... If I was making a novel with French people, I'd be like, I can't choose these names. It's too stereotypical. We'd have to go with at least someone having a non-Frenchy sounding name. Finally, the youngest child is Charles-Henri. Of course it is. Henceforth, simply Charles. We hope he won't mind. Charles is a gynecologist with a successful practice and is married to Christine, whom we met in the introduction. To throw Simon into utter confusion, Charles and Christine decided to sire 3 children named Guillaume, Amaury, and Diane. Family tree, eh? Oh, I hope it's not too important to understanding today's story because I'm already a little bit lost. Good. On paper, such a family would not make for targets susceptible to conspiratorial thoughts, but as we shall soon see, they would eventually let themselves to be drenched by a veritable avalanche of bullshit. The fall of the House of de Vedrines began in the most anticlimactic of ways, a job posting for a cleaning services vendor. Okay. A snake in their midst. Back in 1997, second-born Ghislaine de Vedrines was looking for a cleaning contractor to help take care of her school for secretaries. The father of one of her students introduced her to a former associate, claiming that he was the man for the job. The guy in question was one Thierry Tilly, born... Oh, wasn't this called Tilly something? Isn't this episode called Tilly something? What's it called? The Tilly Conspiracy. It's him. He's got something to do with this. Also, absolute classic French name there, Tilly. Born in 1964 on the outskirts of Paris, not much was known about him, except that he had a knack for business and administration, despite flunking out of his university studies. According to rumors, he had accomplished at least 2 lucrative real estate deals. According to other rumors, those deals turned out to be scams. Uh-oh. Nonetheless, at first, Mr. Tilly appeared completely harmless to Ghislaine. He was small, thin, friendly. He also appeared to be happily married to Mrs. Jessica Diner, a striking former model. Wow, this guy can pull dude. He's like small and thin and kind of a scam artist who is a cleaner and not very successful. And he's married to a former model. But Ghislaine's husband, journalist Jean, would immediately perceive an undercurrent of menace underneath Thierry Tilly's uncharismatic appearance. As later described by journalist Michael Gross, the bespectacled 35-year-old had a raspy voice, a pasty face, and an unexpectedly strong handshake, a painful grip that felt less like a friendly greeting than an assertion of power. Married to a model. Nonetheless, Tilly's competence impressed Ghislaine, who hired him as a sort of jack of all trades and master of all. Okay. Tilly sorted out the cleaning priorities, then fixed the school's IT infrastructure. 2 very different jobs. Little by little, the newcomer became essential to the daily running of the business and was promoted to the rank of Ghislaine's right-hand man. Jean was jealous at first, suspecting an affair. Jean's like, I don't know. Like, you wouldn't think that this guy's the guy who's going to have an affair with my wife. Because look at him. He's like a weird, short, raspy dude. But also, somehow, he's married to this model. So maybe there's something to this dude. But soon he realized that his wife's fascination with Tilly was purely intellectual and perhaps all the more dangerous. Gradually, Tilly extended his influence over the entire de Vedrines clan as Ghislaine invited him to weekends and family gatherings. On such occasions, the pasty-faced factotum unleashed his secret weapon, a talent for shameless brown-nosing. Yes! Philippe is a high-ranking executive of Shell Oil? Why, he should be its president. Charles is a gynecologist with a busy practice. Such an injustice. He should be head of medicine at a hospital. In hindsight, Tilly was targeting the family with a relentless campaign of love bombing to get into their good graces, but everybody except for Jean was too busy massaging their own egos to realize the scale of the menace. World out of balance. Throughout 1998 and 1999, Tilly further impressed the clan by revealing his friendships and acquaintances in high places. According to him, he had access to corridors of power in the French government, financial institutions, even NATO. Wait, this dude, he applied to a job to be a cleaner in a secretarial school. Why would you think he knows people in NATO? That's really weird. And thanks to his contacts, he was able to place highly lucrative investments. How lucrative? Well, he could guarantee a return of up to 10% monthly. Oh, no. If he said 10% a year, you'd be like, okay, gotta look into it real careful because that's always an unbelievable amount of return. And monthly, it's just like, if anyone is saying that, it's a scam. Look, dude. Anything, it doesn't matter what it is. If someone's like, oh, I've got this new crypto thing, I've got this new investment thing, it's off market. If it is above 10% a year, be enormously skeptical. If it's 10% a month or 2% a day or something, you are going to get scammed. You are being scammed. I promise you. Yes, Bernie Madoff could sod off with his meager 10% a year. The Vedrines clan fell for the ruse and entrusted their savings to the newcomer. Oh no, don't do that. It's a Ponzi scheme for sure, allegedly. Surprisingly, he was able to fulfill his promises. Nobody really understood where those payments came from. We can speculate that either Tilly was running a Ponzi scheme or he was plundering the funds of Ghislaine's school. What matters most to us is that Mr. Nobody, Thierry Tilly, now had an old aristocratic and rich family eating out of the palm of his deceptively weak hands. When the time was ripe, Tilly sprung upon the Vedrines a shocking revelation. Unbeknownst to them, a secret lodge of Freemasons was conspiring to acquire Ghislaine's school for secretaries. Of course they were. That sounds likely. The Freemasons, we really need that secretarial school for our secret world domination plan, which isn't even what the Freemasons do. This is so silly. These people are supposed... There's a journalist, there's an executive at Shell, there's a woman who runs a successful business. Why aren't these people smarter? And I know con men are very convincing and all, being con men, but still, come on, use your brains. Were they short on typists? Not really, for what the lodge was actually after was the Paris building hosting the business. This computed to the clan as back in the day, the Parisian Freemasons were actually notorious for pursuing real estate deals. We should specify that they did so legally, but Tilly speculated that in this case they would go so far as committing murder to secure Ghislaine's school. Moreover, the Freemasons were not alone in their conspiracy. They could count on some powerful allies. Allies such as the Rosicrucian Order, a mystic and esoteric order founded in the 17th century, or a mysterious unnamed cabal of homosexuals, or P-word files. Yes, welcome to YouTube. According to the flavor of the day. Oh my god, guys, how do you not see through this? This is obviously, it's obviously a scam. Come on! Even, normally I'm like, oh, well, hindsight's 2020. This isn't a casual criminalist episode. Of course you know Simon. But I mean, come on! It's ridiculous. Completing the roster of baddies lurking in the shadows, Tilly added perhaps the most dangerous of all, France's equivalent of the IRS or HMRC, the Tax and Revenue Services. Uh-oh, nothing scares rich people quite like that. Luckily, the clan was not alone in this titanic struggle. Oh no, for Thierry Tilly, the apparent cleaning operator and IT engineer, he was in fact a former secret agent. Guys, could you throw in more tropes? How is this at all believable to anybody? who still enjoyed the protection of his NATO contacts. And if that wasn't enough, the Vedrines themselves were a force to be reckoned with. Unbeknownst to them, the family were among the last descendants of the Balance of the World, a secret knightly order, once part of the formidable Knights Templar. The Balance of the World had been lying dormant for centuries, awaiting to be activated only when the planet itself was at great peril. Battle lines were being drawn against the forces of darkness, but who would lead the Vedrines in the coming struggle? Well, Thierry Tilly, of course, and his close associate, one Jacques Gonzalez. By day, Gonzalez owned a car importing business and managed a humanitarian organization called Blue Light Foundation. But in truth, Gonzalez was a secret cousin of His Majesty Juan Carlos of Bourbon, King of Spain, and held the rank of Grand Master of the Balance of the World. All right, chill out. It's like, oh yeah, no. This guy, he works as the guy who polishes the wheels on cars at a car wash. He also happens to be the General Secretary of NATO. Just the shadow, operating in the shadows. It couldn't be more ridiculous. How does anyone believe this? If it wasn't clear enough, Tilly had dumped onto the clan a lump of bullshit so big as to generate its own gravitational field. Yes, no shit. And yet, they swallowed it all. In the parallel universe created by Tilly, it was Gonzalez who called the shots, issuing the strategies required by the family to survive the plot against them. Thierry acted simply as a dispatch, carrying the orders and executing tactics on the ground. But was Jacques Gonzalez actually the master conman and Tilly simply a lackey in his thrall? This has never been clarified. For sure the two were accomplices, and it may be that Gonzalez had been manipulated just as much as the unlucky aristocrats. Now, we mentioned strategies, tactics, and orders, but what exactly were the clans supposed to do to fight against the Freemasons and their allies? Well, mostly, dish out the cash and plenty of it. Oh my god, guys, really? I'm really struck. If this was a fiction book, I'd be like, nah, it's insane, dude. Like, if I was editing this as a fiction book, I'd be like, bro, you can't say all of these things. You can't be like, oh yeah, it's the Rosicrucians, and it's HMRC, and it's spies, and NATO, and whoever else. It's like, come on. Come on now. Tilly urged them to entrust him with their savings and properties so that he could finance a non-existing network of protectors in high places. As we mentioned earlier, the only family member reluctant to buy bovine intestinal produce was Jean, Ghislaine's husband. He noticed as his wife lost a great deal amount of weight and gradually slipped into paranoia, perceiving Masonic enemies behind every corner. She entrusted the daily running of the school to Tilly, who moved onto the premises and even hired himself a watchman to keep the grounds secure. The school's headmaster, Martine Gourdin, was flabbergasted to discover gaping holes in the business's accounting books. Oh my god, what? No. But her protests fell on deaf ears, as the funds presumably disappeared into Tilly's pockets. In March 2001, Ghislaine ceased to pay her staff before shutting down the school altogether in the summer. Over the holidays, the entire family retreated to their hometown of Mlonflaquin, where Ghislaine and Jean set up to organize the wedding of their firstborn daughter, Wilhelma Jr. The nuptials were celebrated on September the 1st, and Jean hoped for life to return to normal. He would be sorely mistaken. Why would you think this? Why do you think that your daughter getting married is going to suddenly make your wife not paranoid and in the grasp of this conman? Jean, you got to do something about this, dude. Wait, was Jean the one? Jean was the one he married into the family, wasn't he? He doesn't have that much power over the money, I assume. 2 days later, Ghislaine hastily left for Paris, summoned by Tilly on urgent business. On September the 7th, she suddenly reappeared in their family home, surprising Jean with what appeared to be a staged act. Jean was in the living room when his wife burst in, holding a bunch of dried flowers and a glove. She threw the flowers and the glove on her husband's face and launched into a tirade, which appeared as though she'd learned by heart. Ghislaine described herself as being weak, an outcast, a soulless being, and then said that those flowers were a symbol of the evil network to which Jean belonged. As for poor Jean, he could not understand what the fuck was going on. Was he being accused of being allied to the Freemasons? Before he could react, Ghislaine's brothers Philippe and Charles made an entrance, grabbed him by the arms and shoved him out of the house. The two threatened Jean, giving him half an hour to pack his stuff and get the hell back to Paris. But Jean was a journalist with an inquisitive mind, and after some weeks, he returned to Montflaquin in secret. He entered his holiday home unnoticed and rifled through Ghislaine's belongings, searching for clues. In his wife's computer, he found an email from Tilly, bearing precise orders. Toss the flowers and the glove on his face. Tell him that they are symbols of his evil network. Give him half an hour to pack. Tilly had started out as a conman, but he had now executed a move out of the cult leader's handbook. He had singled out Jean as an internal enemy, and by removing him, he had consolidated the loyalty of his followers. Jean was now completely excluded. The shared accounts he had with Ghislaine had been squeezed dry, and his wife would file for divorce shortly thereafter. The journalist would later declare, "It was like a tsunami. They made me into a zombie, a ghost. Thierry Tilly was a sort of brain burglar. He broke open my relatives' heads, stole their brain, and replaced it with a new one." Jesus Christ. I kind of thought Tilly at first is a terrible con man because he's just spinning all these crazy stories. But Tilly read his marks, didn't he? He's got this down, dude. Brains are not Tilly's only loot, however. No, he's after that money. After draining Ghislaine's personal and business accounts, he also sucked dry Philippe's finances. All these funds were collected into the capital of a company called Presswell Enterprises Limited, nominally owned by the entire Vedrines family. But guess what? The only beneficiary was Mr. Tilly himself, who used the funds to buy himself a nice apartment building in the Alps. I'm using it to fight the Freemasons. Which I do by skiing a lot and then just relaxing a lot. Castle of Doom. By the end of September 2001, Tilly moved to Chapter 2 of How to Lead a Cult for Dummies, a campaign of isolation. He spun another big fat lie, warning the clan that their enemies were closing in. For their safety, they had to move to a secluded, well-protected location. How about a castle? How about their very own Chateau Martel? In the span of a few months, the entire family quit their jobs, liquidated most of their assets, handed over the cash to Tilly, and relocated to the family castle near Montflac Inn. Even the newlywed Wilhelma Jr. left her husband to join the family in their self-imposed captivity. Their protector/manipulator, Tilly, did not move in with them, of course. He was too busy enjoying their cash, buying luxury watches, fine clothing, and expensive holidays. But the official version he spun to the Vedrines was that he was preoccupied with securing a protective network around the castle. All the family had to do was stay indoors as much as possible and follow his instructions relayed sporadically via phone and email. They had to avoid contact with outsiders, strangers, and old friends alike. But how about going to the doctor? Matriarch Wilhelmina was approaching 90 and had developed a cataract problem. Tilly emailed that a visit to the doctor was absolutely forbidden. As per those cataracts, they had not developed naturally. They were the result of well-aimed laser beams shot with precision by fiendish homosexuals and Freemasons lurking around the castle. Guys! One of you dudes is an executive at King Shell. You're obviously quite smart. Come on! If they all wanted to avoid a similar fate, they had to keep the window shutters permanently closed. So, for the ensuing months, the 11 members of the clan lived almost in total isolation, secluded from the world and from natural light. All they could do was watch TV, play table tennis, or obsessively clean the entire castle as per Tilly's instructions. Wait, they live in an entire castle, all they've got is a TV and a table tennis table? Why does their castle seem more like a prison? I mean, that really does, doesn't it? This bizarre behavior did not go unnoticed, and the neighbors alerted a local newspaper, the Sud-Ouest, or Southwest. The paper's articles blew open the case of the captives of Montflac Inn, which made it to the headlines of the national paper Le Monde. One article at the time read, "Since autumn 2001, 11 members of an aristocratic family live in almost total autarky after cutting off contact with friends and neighbors. Is this a scam? A case of mental manipulation? A cult? All of the above, really. All of the above, we dare say, on Ado and I same page, yes." An old friend of the family told Le Monde, "I only see them while they do their shopping in a rush, always in pairs or groups of 3, never alone. And when I meet them in a shop, our conversation doesn't go beyond good morning and good evening." Another old friend revealed, "I don't have contacts with them any longer, even though we basically grew up together. One day, because of a minor dispute involving a car, I was verbally assaulted by one of them, whom I considered to be one of my best friends. He accused me of hosting swingers orgies or taking part in black masses. They all accused us of being Freemasons." The press campaign, however, failed to solve the problem. The Vedrines threatened to sue the papers, and reporters were forced to respect their privacy. But do you know who doesn't respect anybody's privacy? Tax collectors. Since the start of their captivity, the clan had failed to pay their taxes, accumulating a hefty bill. I don't know, but you must have people who do this for you. You're locking yourself away in the thing, but there'll be someone on the outside. You're a giant rich family, you live in a castle. Someone's doing that for you, no? In 2003, although they do seem very incompetent given how easily they're swindled by this dude, in 2003, revenue services staged a raid at Chateau Martel, confiscating furniture, crockery, and white goods. To add insult to injury, that slimeball Tilly seized the day, claiming that the raid was proof that the revenue services were in cahoots with the Freemasons. No. They'll take your shit if you don't pay your taxes. Simple. That's what's happening. Now, the utterly paranoid and impoverished clan had to relocate to a smaller house in a nearby town, all the while still living under Tilly's iron heel. You may remember that one family member had dodged the bullet, Jean Marchand, Ghislaine's husband. The indefatigable journalist spoke to lawyers and psychiatrists while pestering investigators and prosecutors. Unfortunately, nothing could be done. All of Tilly's victims were consenting adults, and thus a report for coercion could only be filed by a relative. But all the relatives had been enthralled by Tilly, and thus could not speak to the authorities. This catch-22 could have been broken by Jean, but he was now divorced from Ghislaine, so he was no longer considered a relative of the victims. Wait, there's only 11 members of this family? There's no, cousin or some shit? You can be like, guys, what's going on over there? Or is cousin just not a close enough relative? Very weird. Crossing the Channel. Tilly eventually did run into trouble with the law, however. Prosecutors were about to take the conman to court on old charges of misappropriation of company funds. To avoid this trial, Tilly relocated to London with his wife. It's 2005, isn't it? Or it's the 2000s. European Union, just go get him, France. In 2005, the couple moved to Oxford, where he would soon be joined by Guillaume de Vedrines, firstborn son to Charles and Christine. Wait, why is this guy not being like, yo, go check them out, see, we got a relative? In the later years, this young man had emerged within the group as a sort of favourite, a right-hand man to Tilly who helped keep in check the other family members. Oh, okay, never mind, he's already enthralled. In 2006, Tilly and Guillaume rented some properties from a local landlord, orchestrating the move to Oxford of more clan members. Eventually, the Tilly cult occupied 3 properties, one for Tilly and his wife, one for Charles, Christine, and their firstborn, Guillaume, and one for Guillaume's younger siblings, Diane and Amory, plus their cousins Francois, son of Ghislaine. Out of all of them, Guillaume was the only one allowed a cushy job as an employee in an archaeological surveying company. Moreover, he had the honor of working as personal assistant to Tilly and his mysterious accomplice, Jacques Gonzalez, in their equally mysterious Blue Light Foundation. As per the other 5 de Vedrines, they were essentially kept as forced laborers. Tilly somehow coerced them into taking underpaid jobs, devoting 90% of their salaries to their master. How are these guys the ones who get in trouble for not paying their taxes or whatever, and this guy's just secretly taking all of their money? Is he just keeping everything above board on the surface, like a drug cartel or money laundering or whatever, and everything else is a crime? Amazing. Take young Diane, for example. She was forced to toll away at a double shift serving milkshakes from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. before waiting tables into the night at a local Nando's, Britain's favourite purveyor of roast chicken smothered in spicy Portuguese sauce. My mouth is watering. I love Nando's. So good. Her dad, Charles, once a gynecologist, was now a gardener. Mum, Christine, also waited tables, and brother Amory swept floors at Burger King. Once the clan members were settled into their jobs, in November 2006, Tilly summoned them for an important revelation. Unbeknownst to them, and even to herself, Christine was the chosen one. But chosen for what exactly? Tilly's explanations were as wild and as murky as usual. You see, Christine was not a de Vedrine. She had married into the family. Her surname before marrying Charles was Cornet de la Minière, a surname which might have a vague meaning as Cornet of the Mines. But Tilly insisted that the actual meaning was more akin to transmission of precious metal. In the conman's contorted explanation, such a name was a pretentious sign. Christine was the key to a wondrous treasure, itself a conduit to a secret that would have saved the world, and Tilly knew where the treasure was held, in a safe deposit box, stored inside a bank vault in Brussels. Is he going to manipulate these dudes into robbing a bank vault for him? In Brussels. Isn't that where all the diamonds go? Aren't all the diamonds in vaults in Brussels? This is going to be intense if it... At first I was like, this dude's a bit of a con man. Now I'm like, this is the greatest con man who's ever lived. Alright, but at which bank? And what was the account number? Well, Tilly admitted that he didn't know. Only Christine had such information, but she had forgotten it. She only needed some help to refresh her memory. To do so, Tilly organised an expedition to Belgium. Christine, Guillaume, and himself travelled to Brussels, where the middle-aged lady was meant to suddenly remember which was the right bank and the account number. In an agonizing trip, Christine walked into every banking branch in Brussels, asking if her deposit box was stored there by any chance. Naturally, the trio returned to Oxford empty-handed, so Tilly decided it was time to extract the information by other means. Christine, at the time aged 58, was forced to undergo 2 periods of captivity and ill treatment, first from November 2006 to March 2007, and then again in January 2008, as Christine later recalled. At the beginning, I was allowed to drink tea and eat some biscuits. Then Tilly said I was not allowed to go to the toilet any longer, and so I stopped drinking. Thierry Tilly treated me like an animal. I was forced to urinate in front of my own relatives. My son, Amaury, had to clean it up. It was terrible. Tilly would walk into my room at regular intervals. He shouted and threatened me. He said he would not allow me to see my children any longer. He said he would fire a pistol close to my ears, and that he would leave me in the clutches of a regiment of Senegalese soldiers. Just gets more and more wild, doesn't it? Jeez. The rather racist implication here being that the Senegalese soldiers could not help but sexually assault the poor lady, till he eventually moved beyond verbal threats. Quoting again, "One day, he struck my back very hard." The conman even involved Christine's family in her torture. Her husband Charles was ordered to pull hard on her ears whenever she was falling asleep, keeping her awake for days at a time. All the while, a humiliated Christine demanded forgiveness as she was not able to remember the bank details, which, of course, never existed in the first place. And then suddenly, Tilly put an end to the torture, the sleep deprivation, the captivity. A tearful Christine was allowed to rejoin the fold of the mini cult. So what was all that about? Was Tilly really convinced that this victim guarded a secret treasure? Well, that's another mystery. But according to French psychiatrist and cult expert Daniel Zaguri, the whole episode had just been a stratagem conceived by Tilly to strengthen his grip on the family, to stir them up against each other, and essentially to enslave them. The cheeseman cometh. Okay, let's move away from Oxford for a moment now and pan southwards to France. Up to February 2008, 4 members of the clan were still living in southern France. Wilhelmina, the matriarch, her daughter Ghislaine, her son Philip, and Philippe's wife Brigitte. Their lives were still pretty much dictated by Tilly's wishes, but as funds ran low, Philippe grew restless. In the past, Philippe had loaned some money to other family members, and now he wanted back his cash. Following a ferocious quarrel in February, Philippe told his relatives that they could all go f*** off and left his voluntary imprisonment. Suddenly, he and Brigitte were out of the clan, and as such, had cut ties with their tormentor. The matriarch and Ghislaine, left alone, decided to join the rest of the Vedrines in Oxford, while Philip made contact with Jean. The two employed the lawyer, Daniel Picoton. An expert in cases concerning cults and manipulation, could they finally file a report for fraud and coercion? French authorities were willing to proceed, at least in theory. In practice, as the victims were living in England, they still needed a complaint from a group member still under Tilly's influence. That damned catch-22 again. Wait, this really seems ridiculous. Like, they're in a clan, it's like, oh no, I need a family member to say that they are. It's like, oh no, we actually need someone who's being enslaved by the clan to say they are. It's like, how about you investigate cults, police? Come on now. So let's cross the channel once more, shall we? By autumn of 2008, Tilly had resumed his role as cult leader from a distance, delegating much of his daily manipulation tasks to his new associate, Guillaume de Vedrines. The latter was mainly in charge of managing funds, which were never enough. For this reason, Tilly and the young clan member decided to sell off the family's ancestral home, Chateau Martel, below market value. This was a hard blow for the entire family, especially for Christine. Her own son was cooperating with her tormentor while concentrating the clan's wealth into his own hands, while poor Christine had to skip from one underpaid job to the other. In early 2009, she started working for a new employer, a catering company, in charge of the cheese stall at Oxford's covered market. Can you imagine just working in a cheese stall? It's like, oh, no, my family own a castle in France. We're actually pretty aristocratic. And it's like, why are you working in a cheese stall then? It's like, oh, it's something to do with the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, like spies, NATO. We are now back to the beginning of today's episode. Thanks to Bobby Barron, Puget's persistent questioning, Christine eventually opened up, revealing her incredible tale of swirling conspiracies, treasure hunts, and psychological abuse. Christine was still feeling guilty about not remembering where the alleged Belgian treasure was hidden, to which Bobby blurted out, "You don't remember because there isn't any memory. That's all made up." Being a practical man, the cheese baron had realized that Christine and her relatives had fallen victim to a narcissistic, manipulative conman, one who might have enjoyed his status as leader of a cult group, but eventually it was all about the money. So he asked Christine, "What happened to your money? Who has your money?" Christine replied that her son Guillaume was the master of the purse strings, so Bobby insisted they call him there and then to force him to give Christine a fair share. But she was still paranoid, fearing Tilly might have bugged Bobby's phone. Bobby, be careful. You don't know, Thierry Tilly is an all-powerful man. But Puget wouldn't have any of that. Nonsense. He's just a little creep. Bobby then dialed Guillaume's number and put him on speakerphone. And it's worth quoting the entire dialogue here. Guillaume, voice of a 20-something French douchebag, allegedly in our opinion. You again, Mum, you are an old bore. Nightmare. Mind your own business. Don't worry, things are under control, just fucking leave me alone. Bobby, sounds like a 50-something French legend. Listen, you little shit. How dare... I'm not doing French accents, because I just don't want to. Listen, you little shit. How dare you speak to your mother like this? She's a kind lady. She's trying to contact you. Where are your manners? Where is her money? Guillaume, none of your business. Bobby, I'm making it my fucking business. Guillaume, I don't have to speak with you. Bobby, you may not have to speak with me, but you will have to speak with the police. Bobby's a fucking legend. He's like, I have a very specific set of skills. In my native hometown of Italy, that's Arnaldo, not me, old people in the northern regions like to tell tales about a mythical character called the Cheeseman. This is a legendary being who can walk into any town at any moment to mete out justice, putting bullies, douches, and assorted scumbags in their place. I like to think that this sort of folk superhero has materialized in the late 2000s in Oxford, taking the imposing shape and booming voice of cheese merchant Baron Bobby Puget. In this incarnation, the Cheeseman has swooped in to save Christine with the help of a few chosen magic words: little creep and little shit. Exit counseling. That's all it took to initiate the chain of events which melted down Tilly's fortress of deceit. After cutting short the phone call with Guillaume, Puget started planning Christine's exfiltration. The two made a call to Marie-Hélène Essel, an old school friend of Christine's, and arranged an appointment in London. Bobby then escorted Christine from Oxford to St Pancras International train station and entrusted her to the care of Marie-Hélène. The school friends helped Christine on board the Eurostar train, and the two zoomed under the channel, emerging in Paris a couple of hours later. Here, Christine reunited with Philippe de Vedrines and Jean Marchand, the two clan members who had escaped Tilly's clutches. The three then met with their lawyer and cult specialist, Daniel Picotin. Picotin enthusiastically collected Christine's testimony. They finally had the case to proceed with Tilly's arrest on charges of fraud, false imprisonment, and mistreatment. French prosecutors cooperated with the British police, who wiretapped Tilly's phone and learned that he was about to flee to Switzerland. The Brits passed the ball to the Swiss police, who eventually arrested Thierry Tilly in Zurich on October the 21st, 2009. This went on for so long and he's drained all their money. Tilly's victims, however, were still in Oxford. They still suffered from the Conman psychological programming and were too paranoid to trust local authorities. Jean Marchand's attorney Picotin feared that they might terminate themselves. Yes, YouTube wording again there, different way. If approached by the police, Lady Picotin was an expert in exit counseling, an exfiltration technique perfected in 1978 to deal with cult members, and using this method, Picotin conducted 2 expeditions to Oxford in November and December 2009, safely returning the entire clan to France. In June 2010, French police also busted Tilly's mysterious accomplice, Jacques Gonzalez. Upon searching his property, officers found 120,000 euros in cash, a BMW worth 93,000 euros, several luxury watches, and a collection of tailor-made suits worth more than 80,000 euros. God damn, dude, you buying that fancy shit? Then in September, both Gonzalez and Tilly went to trial, charged with fraud, psychological abuse, violence against vulnerable people, and false imprisonment. By the time they bore witness in court, all members of the Vedrines family had thoroughly awakened from the hypnotic spell cast by Tilly. Even Guillaume admitted to having been duped and manipulated by the Conman into harming his own family, quoting him, "Mr. Tilly is not a guru, and we did not form a cult. He is a criminal, a highly perverse man, a predator. He is the Hannibal Lecter of manipulation." Have to say, Arnaldo, when we started this one, I was like, oh no, people are going to get eaten. I don't like that. And instead, it's just been about Conmen. In terms of like horror that I expect from the script and lack of horror that I'm getting, this is absolutely up there. I like it. The name Hannibal Lecter may evoke images of master criminals with genius-level intellect, but during the trial, Tilly came across as a total and utter moron, a deluded narcissist who desperately tried to impress the court with increasingly deranged bullshit. At one point he stated, "I was a good friend of General Charles de Gaulle, and then I was one of the co-founders of President Chirac's party." Yes, sure you were. Next, "I'm the direct descendant of Charles V of Habsburg. Queen Elizabeth II is my aunt. My correct aristocratic title is King of Israel." It is fair to speculate that Tilly may have been trying to diminish his responsibility by reasons of insanity. In any case, on November 13th, 2012, Judge Marie Elizabeth Barncol, presiding over the Bordeaux Tribunal, issued her sentence. Quoting her here, "Mr. Tilly and Mr. Gonzalez have been at the center of a Machiavellian plot. Over the span of 9 years, Tilly exploited the weaknesses of an entire family, taking advantage of their history and their situation. Tilly was thus found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Jacques Gonzalez, well into his 60s and disabled due to severe diabetes, received a lighter 4-year sentence. His real role in the entire affair remains unclear. Accomplice, dupe, or real mastermind, we don't know. The court settled an accomplice, though, and forced the scamming duo to return to the Vedrines all the money they had pilfered throughout the years. 5 million euros. That's 6.8 million in today's value, or 7.4 million American dollars. The family still has not recovered their beloved Chateau Martel, however, and a parallel court case is still ongoing against the notary who oversaw the sale in 2008. After all, the buyers had purchased the property in good faith, seeing that at the time Guillaume de Vedrines had acted as an agent on behalf of Tilly. Per the chief antagonist of this story, the self-proclaimed King of Israel appealed his sentence in 2013. In a rare instance, the tribunal admitted to their mistake and extended the prison term by 1 year. That's the risk of appeal. You appeal thinking I'm going to get less, and they're like, no, you deserve more. There's more punishment for you. Shouldn't have appealed, should you? That'll teach you a lesson. The Conman benefited from early release, however, and by June 2021, he was free to walk again on the streets of Bordeaux. Then, something happens. According to local paper Le Sud-Est, the once mastermind of convoluted conspiracies experienced a severe psychotic or manic episode while in Bordeaux, so severe that he was picked up by an ambulance and forcibly interned in a psychiatric ward. Had his mental health deteriorated while in prison? Had he been suffering from mental health issues all along? I think probably both. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any more information about his current whereabouts and circumstances, and several search results against his name appeared to have been removed according to privacy protection laws. What really matters to us is the well-being of his victims, the de Vedrines clan. Their psyche had been shattered by years of induced paranoia, mind games, manipulation, and abuse. As of today, they are still receiving counseling from psychiatrist Daniel Zaguri, an expert in deprogramming cult victims. The same expert could provide some answers to the big question: how is it possible that an apparently close family of successful and intelligent professionals fell for the outrageous lies fed by Tilly? Yeah, it's a really good question. Again, I bring it up. These were like successful, smart people. This guy's just God King of Conmen, apparently. In March 2014, Charles and Christine de Vedrines attended the annual Congress of FECRIS, the European Federation of Centers of Research and Information on Cults. In their speech, they quoted Dr. Zaguri, according to which 85% of the population is susceptible to being manipulated at any point in their life. The victims of manipulation are not ill, they are not crazy, they are not marginalized, and they are not fanatics of the occult. Christine then explained to her audience how they, too, were part of that 85%, quoting again, "We had not been attracted by dark forces, or we simply responded to phenomena which are regulated by the laws of the human psyche, mechanisms used by cults, conmen, and bogus medical professionals. And therein lies the answer. We may consider ourselves to be rational, strong-willed individuals, but after all, it's very easy to fall victim to said mechanisms. Here at Casual Criminalist, we may consider fraudsters to be less dangerous than gangsters or serial killers, but let's not forget that they share many of the techniques used by manipulators of every magnitude, from narcissistic abusive partners to violent dictators. So let's be aware of the techniques that are used by these little shits and little creeps. The creeps normally initiate a stage of seduction or love bombing designed to gain the approval of an individual or a group. Once the creeps have made themselves essential, they entrap their victims, exploiting their weaknesses, their fragility, or any other point of leverage. Next, the creeps progressively drain the material and mental resources of their victims with increasing requests for attention, time, energy, or just plain hard cash. Now the creep has to shield the victims from the outside world, instigating a sense of paranoia against alleged enemies, both internal or external to the group. As the victims are fearful of outsiders, they will rely on the creep for their basic needs. This reliance cements loyalty, which is further reinforced by periods in which the creep alternately humiliates or praises individuals within the group. Once this stage is reached, the feeling of loyalty and dependence has become completely irrational and thus much harder to eradicate. A cursory study of 20th century history may show how these handbook techniques were applied to the Hitlers, the Mussolinis, the Stalins, and the Chairman Maos of this world. But you needn't be the subject of a homicidal regime to find yourself in such a situation. Too many people today still fall prey to their own private dictatorship under the heel of a cult leader, a charming scammer, or simply an abusive individual. If you find yourself trapped at any stages described above, it's not too late to snap out of it and rightfully reclaim your life. It's difficult, certainly, but one does not have to do it alone. I may be naive, but I like to think that for every Tilly at large, there are dozens of cheesemen or cheesewomen willing to lend a hand. Dismembered appendices. Rather than including some appendices in this section, I'd like to share some helpful resources. Okay, here we go. In the UK, you can contact the Cult Information Centre, which is a thing. Wow. At cultinformation.org.uk. And if you believe a fraudster is trying to ensnare you or a loved one, you can call the Specialised Police Squad at 0300 123 2040. In the case the little despot in question is closer to home, the National Domestic Abuse Helpline is available 24 hours a day on 0808 2000 24/7. Our American friends can find an entire directory of help centers for cult victims at cultrecovery101.com. For fraud-related matters, how about you ring the good old FBI at 202-324-3000, and the abuse hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And that is where we end today's episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, and I will see you next time.
Just before we end today's video, a reminder, a big thank you to Holzkern for sponsoring it. Check out their unique, high-quality products through the link in the description below and get up to 30% off. Limited time offer, and thank you for watching.